Kelsey. This is my booktube channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I am wearing my fancy booktube hat, and today I am bringing you my wrap-up for the Tome Topple Readathon. Tome Topple ran from June 5th through 19th. It was created by Sam from Thoughts on Tomes, and she had a small legion of co-hosts working with her, running Twitter sprints. I will link all of the information for the readathon down below. But basically, the goal for the readathon was to read big books over 500 pages. There were 5 challenges for this readathon that were totally optional. My TBR, I'll link my TBR video for you, was for 3 books that would cover all 5 challenges. And I stuck pretty exactly to my TBR. I read all 3 books, and I'm going to share some of my thoughts on them with you. So the 3 books that I finished were Bitterblue by Kristin Cashore, this bind-up of Patricia A. McKillip's Riddle-Master trilogy, and for the graphic novel break challenge, The Last Dragon by Jane Yolen and Rebecca Guay? Guay? Or Guay, I'm not sure. The challenges were to read more than one 500-page book, take a graphic novel break, read a tome that's part of a series, read over 500 pages in 1 week, which I completed in the first week when I read both Bitterblue and the first book in the Riddle-Master trilogy, and read an adult novel, and for that I'm counting this. So this is the only edition of this trilogy that is currently in print, but I do want to talk about the 3 individual books as separate entities a little bit, because it is a series, and because I did spread out the books within the series. I read the first book, The Riddle-Master of Head, which took me to page 187. Then I stopped and read Bitterblue. Then I read the second book, Air of Sea and Fire, which took me to page 352. And then I read The Last Dragon. And then I read the third book, Harpist in the Wind, which took me all the way to the end at page 571. So in order of the actual books that I completed, Bitterblue was the first physical book that I completed in the readathon. This is the 3rd and final book in Kristin Cashore's Graceling Realm Companion series, and now that I've finished it, I will be able to film a full series review of those 3 books. So I'm not going to talk about this a whole ton here, but I do think this may have been my favorite book of the 3. The story was maybe a little less gripping than Graceling, but I think the writing was more sophisticated. I gave both Graceling and Bitterblue 4 stars, and I was a little disappointed in Fire, which I gave only 3 stars to. So look for my series review of these books. The Last Dragon is now my 2nd foray into the wonderful world of graphic novels. You may remember that I read Nimona a little while back, and that was sort of my first foray into the wonderful world of graphic novels. And I picked this up in part because I had heard of Jane Yolen but never read any of her work, and I thought that this might be a good place to start. And in part because this art is just stunningly beautiful. I didn't really have any problems with this book, but I only gave it 3 stars because I feel like there just wasn't quite enough story in it to justify it being a full physical book. It felt at times more like just flipping through a gorgeous art book that happened to have a bit of a story tacked on. Like, I would happily decorate my apartment with art prints of like half of the panels in this graphic novel. There just isn't a whole lot of text, and the story is pretty sparse. I feel like this might actually be a graphic novelization of a pre-existing short story, and I would guess that if this were in short story form, it would be like, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 pages instead of like 100-page, this is 143-page graphic novel. And if I were to read a short story of this length just on its own, I probably wouldn't even be like talking about it on BookTube or rating it on Goodreads, just because even though I do read short stories of that length on their own on occasion, they're just not big enough events in my life, for the most part, to really give a whole lot of thought to. Now, this is a short story that I probably would have really liked reading it on its own. It's about this rural island community and their need for a hero to slay a dragon that has popped up in their midst. It's got a very fairy tale, folk tale type feel to it, and the art was beautifully matched to the story. But when I read a book, I kind of want like more story in the book. And I found that mostly reading this book, I was just looking at the pretty pictures. So now I want to talk a little bit about the individual 3 books in the Riddle-Master trilogy. I wanted to read these books because a while back I read The Forgotten Beasts of Eld by Patricia A. McKillip, and I really liked it. I thought it was a very elegant fantasy novel. And McKillip has written a lot of books, and she's still writing, and this and Riddle-Master are both books of hers from the 70s. I'm also interested in reading some of her newer books, but I thought I'd go to Riddle-Master next, and then progress on with some of her later writing from there. I rated this bind-up as 1 book on Goodreads, and I gave it a 4-star rating. If I were breaking it down by the individual books, I would probably give 4 stars to each of the first 2 books, but the 3rd book might only be a 3 for me. This bind-up edition comes with a little introduction by the author where she talks about how she was inspired from having read Tolkien and The Lord of the Rings to sort of write her own epic fantasy trilogy in the same sort of style. So I am really glad that I read Lord of the Rings before I picked up Riddle-Master, so that I can see where she borrowed a lot of sort of basic plot elements from Tolkien. The first book, The Riddle-Master of Hed, introduces our hero Morgan. He's the Prince of Hed, which is a small farming island, and he's got some foretold great big destiny thing going on, but he has to figure out what his great big epic destiny is. So it's a pretty standard basic story idea, and it's carried by McKillip's beautiful, beautiful writing. I think she does a really great job in the first book sort of immersing you into all sorts of strange and beautiful magic, and doesn't really go into explaining too much of it in detail. I loved the sort of atmosphere of this book. Probably the biggest, like, gimmick of the trilogy, if you can say it has a gimmick, is the second book, Heir of Sea and Fire. It switches perspectives, and the main character of this book is a young woman, Raiderly, who is only mentioned in the first book. She's a princess to whom Morgan has unintentionally betrothed himself. And then she has her own journey in this book that is sheds a completely different light on everything that's happening in the series. And that is just really, really great. I loved how McKillip pulled that off. And then I was kind of disappointed in the third book that Raiderly faded into the background a bit. She's there the whole book, but was kind of like her purpose in the story had sort of been fulfilled in the second book. And I was just kind of wondering if exciting things were going to happen for her, and they kind of didn't. For the first, quarter to third of the third book, basically what we've got is Raiderly and Morgan bickering with each other, which I was not so much a fan of. But then, everything starts happening all at once, and magical craziness occurs, and the big mysteries of the whole series start to come to light, and you start to see what's been going on the whole time. I did guess some of the things that were going on before they were revealed, which is a position I was absolutely not in with the first two books, where everything was, confusing me as it was happening, and I felt like I was running to catch up, even though McKillip's writing it feels pretty simple. It can be a little challenging to figure out literally what is exactly going on in some of her passages and in some of the magical scenes. And I actually kind of liked that because it does eventually all become clear. But mainly what happened for me with the third book, I think, was that I had just been oversaturating in this trilogy, trying to read it all during the readathon weeks, and it was a lot of one particular kind of fantasy to be immersed in for a very long time, especially since these two were not really great genre breaks from that. So I might have enjoyed the third book more if I had planned my readathon a little better, spreading it out between genres. But overall, I was really happy with this trilogy, and I was really happy with this readathon. If Tome Topple happens again, I would totally be on board. If you've read any of these books and want to chat about them, please leave me a comment. Or if you'd like to read these books, or if you have other books that you read for Tome Topple, or any other books that happen to be over 500 pages, if you have more graphic novel recommendations for me, I want to hear all of it. It has been nice chatting. I hope you are having a lovely summer, since it is now summer. And I'm gonna head off to the library now to return some books and pick up some new ones. Woo-hoo! Okay, bye for now.